Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here at Book Blather. If you're new here, I'm Dave, this is Olive, and we mostly talk about books to help spread the joy of reading. So this is an announcement video. We're late to the party as always. Today we're talking about Horror Mayhem. So we wanted to tell you about this is a booktube event for the month of May. We want to tell you a little bit about it if you haven't already seen one of the numerous other videos about this event, and to tell you what we are planning of reading for this event. So Horror Mayhem is a book event, again, in the month of May that obviously focuses on horror. This was started by Scott and Becky over at the Bookish Bryants a couple of years ago. Olive and I didn't do this when it first started, but we first heard about it last year. And it was sort of like an unofficial, Scott and Becky weren't able to do it last year. And so it was sort of unofficially done, I don't think there were any specific prompts or anything. People just went ahead and did it, and it sounded cool. So we tried it. The idea is basically if you don't have a lot of experience with horror, to get your feet wet a little bit with it. So it kind of focuses on short horror fiction. Now, of course, you can read whatever you want, but the idea is like 200 pages or less, just to make it easy to try to get into the genre. So we did this last year, and the way we did it was we picked a novella for each week. So we read a novella each week, and then we supplemented with short stories along the way. And it was an unusually successful month for us, and we had an absolute great time with it. We had a blast, and we're going to do it the same way this time. We're going to tell you what we're planning to read up front before the month starts, and then as the month goes on, week by week, we'll check in and tell you what we've been reading. But that way, if anybody wants to read anything along with us, let us know. We can be flexible with the schedule. We're not even completely set on our schedule as usual. These things are always more piles of possibilities for us, but somewhat structured here. So basics of the event are there are 4 prompts, okay? You do not have to do these prompts. These are just to help you if you need a little bit of a kicker to get going. We ourselves are not going to be religiously following the prompts, but these are just to, try to give you somewhere to start. So Scott and Becky were involved in the planning of this event, so their hands are all over the prompts and bingo card, which I'll tell you about. Unfortunately, they will not be able to participate again, not because they don't want to. It's personal health issues, so they won't be able to participate. But they have asked the rest of us to move forward. So there's a number of co-hosts, including us. We will have a full list of the co-hosts below. And so, as I said, Scott and Becky played a big part in figuring out what these prompts would be and what the bingo card would look like. So the prompts. 4 weekly prompts. So the first one is local horror. And basically this is anything that's local, right? So this could be a local author, a local horror author to you, or it could be something that's based on, a lot of towns and cities have horror stories or myths, ghost myths and things like that. And so anything that's, relating to your area fits the local. Week 2 is we're going to put up this very nice graphic that somewhere that MJ did. MJ did some very, very nice graphics for this event, and so one is the board that shows the prompts. So week 1 was local horror. Week 2 is movies, movie horror, film horror, and so this is basically anything to do with movies, right? Usually, right, is a horror that's also been made into a movie or vice versa. But it also could be a book about horror movies. It could be a nonfiction book about horror movies. So anything to do with horror cinema. Week 3 is classic horror. And so you may ask what that means, and that is not clearly defined. There's some debate about it. It depends how old you are. So we could fix that as, 1970s and older, or we could make it pre-1970s, or the reality is it probably includes the 80s and things that people my age and for some of my fellow co-hosts of similar age don't want to have a hard time acknowledging that the 80s is probably classic horror now. So that would cover all sorts of paperback, what's generally considered paperbacks from hell from 70s and 80s. So, but you can draw the line wherever you like. And then the last week, the fourth week, is contemporary horror, right? So again, you can draw the line where you want. These are very loose, but we're talking about something more modern horror. So in addition to the prompts, there is also a bingo card. And so this is a bingo card. It's 6 by 6 by 6, right? But no, it's 6 by 6, so there's 36 spots on the bingo card. MJ did some wonderful graphics for these too. There is the just the fun bingo card, but there is also the creepy bingo card. Also, if you're not into bingo cards, there is a checklist version of these spots, and so all of these materials, both the prompts and the various bingo cards, these are all hosted on the cloud by Mindy from Mindy's Book Journey. So she's got all these materials hosted there. We will have a link for that below, so you can just click the link and download any of these materials that you want to use to help you with the Horror Mayhem event. So that's pretty much the event. We'll talk about what we're planning to read. So as I said, we're following a little loosely. So the first week is local horror. This is the one we actually thought we were going to have a very easy time with this, because we actually live, for those of you that are familiar with the Conjuring movies and which are based around the Annabelle doll, the possessed doll, the central figures who are real life figures, Ed and what was it, Elizabeth Warren? Anyway, it was a married couple, the Warrens, who were famous demonologists who did investigations of some of the biggest, haunted house cases and haunted, object cases, and they investigated Annabelle. They actually are not that far from me, and I actually just, for the first time not that long ago, went up and went by and saw their house and went and saw their gravesite. I mean, they're literally only about like 25, 30 minutes from me. They passed away a few years back, but so anyway, because they're close, I thought, oh, that would be easy. I'll just do some Conjuring Annabelle stuff. Turns out it looks like I assumed there was like an Annabelle book or a Conjuring based book. It looks like there actually isn't any short fiction relating to that. So not that I know of anyway. If you know of, let me know, and maybe we'll pick that up. But that's not in our current plan. So we're just going to read something else. So what we're planning to read, I think that week instead, is this, Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones. Now, if you were around, Stephen Graham Jones is famous for a number of things, including My Heart is a Chainsaw, and he's a popular author, read a bunch of books. We've read him before. We read, what was it called? Night of the Mannequins, which was just a fun short book. And so you may, if you've been around last year, you may recall us mentioning this book last year. This was one of the numerous books we had picked out last year. It's the only one that we didn't read. We had hoped, we had sent a copy of this book to our dear friend Pax Panic, and we, with the hopes that we were going to buddy read it last May. And unfortunately, as many of you know, Pax Panic actually ended up passing away last May, so we never got to do that. So I put the book aside, and now seems like the appropriate time to pick it back up. It's been a year. We're back at Horror Mayhem. Pax loved horror, and there's even a spot on the bingo card for her. And so we're going to be reading this one. This is our number one priority for Horror Mayhem this year. For the movie, week 2 movie, we are going to be reading Psycho by Robert Bloch. And so everybody knows this story, right? So this is about a guy and his mother that are running a motel, and so just in case you don't know the story, we won't say anything else. But the movie is so popular. The story is so popular. Everybody knows what the twist is in the book. I think by now, but we've never read the book, so we're gonna read the book, and then we're gonna go watch. There was a movie 1960 and a remake in 1998, and we're gonna watch both of the movies after we read the book. So we're pretty excited to do that. Then for weeks 3 and 4, it's classic and contemporary, and that line is kind of fluid. So we have a number of books lined up that we're going to be reading for that, and so we have a couple of shorter novellas that we've been sitting on for a while that we wanted to read. The first is Piercing by, I don't know if I pronounced this right, but Ryu Murakami, and this book is. This is about a guy that starts to go a little crazy. He starts to have like dreams, I think, about killing his infant child, I think, and so a pretty dark, violent book. So we've wanted to read this one for a while. So that's one of the ones we'll be doing. Then we're also going to be reading Jack and Jill. This is by Keelan Patrick Burke. Keelan Patrick Burke, who is one of our favorite horror authors. He's written number of books that we've read by him that we love: Blanky, Sour Candy, Tent, but he's written some other bigger ones or more famous ones like Kin, and so this one is another short one, and this is about two kids that they have an abusive father, and it's Jack and Jill, and they go to visit this, what is it? Oh yeah, it's a church. They go to this church like every week, and they love rolling down the hill, and they do that all the time to escape from their abusive father until Jack dies. And then we see Jill later on in life when she's married with her own kids and starts to have these visions, and maybe Jack's death didn't happen the way she thinks it did, and so it's supposed to be a good little horror story. Then more, I guess a little more contemporary, is we are planning to read My Sister, the Serial Killer. There is no way I will pronounce the author's name right. Anakin Braithwaite? I don't know. I'll put it up there so you can read it for yourself. So this supposedly, I've heard nothing but good things about this book. This supposedly a really fast-paced, fun one about a girl who, her sister is a serial killer. A number of her sister's significant others have met an early demise, and she, the main character, is an expert at cleaning all that up and getting it taken care of. And then our main character meets a doctor that she falls for, but turns out the doctor asks for her sister's number, so she has to navigate this and figure out how much she wants to actually protect her sister. So sounds like great fun. And then the last novella that we're going to be reading, this is probably pretty much the order that we're planning to go in, but we might flip. This is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. And this is basically this is relatively recent, sort of retelling, I understand, of the fall of the House of Usher. And we read another book by T. Kingfisher a couple years back called The Hollow Places, which had a connection to the famous horror novella The Willows. And we really enjoyed that, so we wanted to try this one. We read The Fall of the House of Usher not that long ago, nice creepy story, and so this is supposedly, I think, a retelling or else very much connected to it, so so that's also on the list. Now, so those are basically, there's 5 weeks to cross into May, and I didn't say what Mapping the Interior was about. So this one's about, sounds like a nice little creepy story. A Blackfeet teen is in his, walking around his house late at night one night and sees a person step through a doorway that he thinks maybe is his old father, his deceased father, but is not sure, and I think explores his heritage a little bit in this sort of gothic tale. So it sounded pretty interesting. So the May crosses over 5 weeks, so we got 5 novellas. My Sister the Serial Killer is a little bit bigger, but it's close enough. It's not that long. It's supposedly very fast-paced. But in addition to that, we're going to try to push hard in May, especially because we had a pretty bad month the last month. May we're going to try to push hard. And so we are going to try, in addition to these novellas, to also add in an additional book that's a little bit longer called Survivor by J.F. Gonzalez. And this book, it's not super long. It's certainly not a novella, but it's not super long. And this supposedly very disturbing, very graphically violent book about there's this woman is going supposed to be a romantic getaway with her husband, and then her husband, they run into trouble, and the husband gets arrested and she gets kidnapped, and they are supposedly going to try to make her star in a snuff film. So they're going to subject her to all sorts of things and torture her. And so she goes through this very harrowing experience, and it's a lot of it is a tale about what she's willing to do in order to survive. So I've heard about this book about being one of the most disturbing books out there. So sound like a really, really great horror that would probably check a number of boxes on the bingo card. So then, as we did last year, we're going to be supplementing with short stories randomly along the way as just fillers. And so last year we did that. We worked out of this book, The Best of H.P. Lovecraft. We thought that was perfect for Horror Mayhem. And we had never read any Lovecraft before. And so we read a number of these stories last year during Horror Mayhem, had a good time with it. We thought we were going to be working out of this book again, but I don't think we'll get... I'm trying to be realistic. I don't think we'll get to this, actually. We were going to do this, and then we were also going to... we were planning to read a couple stories out of the Black Static magazines, which are horror these couple older issues of Black Static, which is creepy horror zine. But I don't think we're going to get to either one of these, actually, because we did a lot of thinking and our thoughts changed several times while we've been reading for Horror Mayhem. And so we pretty much settled on, we definitely need to read more Stephen King. So we are going to be reading out of Night Shift. And this is an early, collection of short stories by Stephen King, famous, and that we have not read. So we're gonna be hitting this. This will also for sure satisfy the classic category. I think this was early 70s. Early 70s ish. And so we're gonna be working on that. And then also unexpectedly, our good friend Gareth over Book Songs and Other Magic sent us over. He just sent us this Deathbed Stories by Harlan Ellison. And I understand that this is mostly, pretty serious horror. I understand that this is mixed. There's some fantasy and some sci-fi here too. So I'm going to need a little guidance. So I'll talk to Gareth. And if anybody else has suggestions about like horror stories I should read out of this. But I'm definitely planning to be pulling from this. I'm just not too educated on it yet because I just got it. But I understand there's a lot of good horror in here. So I'm going to be pulling from this. So realistically, always too ambitious. Realistically, I'm not going to have time to read short stories from these other things either. Another one, I can always be convinced to change my mind. If anybody wants to read something with us, or you have a strong suggestion, we can. So another runner-up was we had The Inhuman Condition by Clive Barker, and so this has a few shorter stories in it, and this is one of the Books of Blood, number 4, I think, of the Books of Blood, which are famous Clive Barker books. But I just don't think we'll have time to get to this. So that's more than we'll be able to handle already. But we had a bunch of other runners up that got cut as we reevaluate what we're going to be reading. But those are the ones that we're going to be doing. Our primary short stories we're going to be pulling from Stephen King's Night Shift and Harlan Ellison's Deathbed Stories, and then, as I said, the weekly novellas we're going to be reading are Mapping the Interior, Piercing, Jack and Jill, My Sister the Serial Killer, What Moves the Dead, and the one that I don't have here is Psycho by Robert Bloch. And I'm now just realizing that that is 6 novellas. So we are really going to have to push hard to also get in short stories and try to hit the Survivor. But we're going to try. We're going to do our best. We're going to give it a valiant effort, and we'll see where we go. Hopefully you guys will cheer us on. So that about does it. That's a wrap. So thanks to everyone, especially thanks to the Scott and Becky at the Bookish Bryants for creating this event. Thanks to MJ for doing all these wonderful graphics. Thanks to Mindy for hosting them, and of course thanks to all our co-hosts for doing this along with us. We hope you join us. This event is such great fun, and even if horror is not really your genre, this is a perfect time to dip your feet into it, because you can do it and talk about it with a lot of other people. Focuses on short fiction, so you can just try little samplings. I really encourage you to give this a try. I'm going to tell you, before I started BookTube, I never read any horror, and now it is one of my favorite genres, if not my favorite genre. I'm really into horror, but until a few years ago, I never read horror ever. So give it a try. This is a perfect event to give it a try, and we're here for anything you want to talk about with it. So okay, so that'll about do it. We'll see you for the regular check-ins, along with our other videos that are going to be going up about other stuff. But we'll see you for the weekly check-ins for Horror Mayhem, and thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment if you want to read any of these, if you've read any of these, you have any suggestions. Let us know what you are planning to read for more Horror Mayhem. We want to hear all that stuff. But if you don't want to leave anything substantive, you can always leave Olive a puppy emoji, because she does always like to see those. So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you very soon. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you next time.